Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only Turbo coin. Now, listen, I know some people are slightly worried, right? Slightly worried because of Turbo's price action. But, ladies and gentlemen, do not be alarmed, right? Do not be alarmed. We can see that Turbo has been going down practically, you can say, ever since the 15th of July. So, roughly 2 weeks now, right? We did top around 0.0069. Wow. We're actually at 0.007 practically. That's crazy. But yeah, we did practically top there, and we can see we're down roughly 36.5% from that time. And even at one point, we're down 40%. Now, you know, correction phase is normal, but you have to realize, ladies and gentlemen, that this is setting up for a reason, right? And the fact that we're also selling off extremely fundamentally means it's because we expect a pump to the upside really, really soon. Okay. Every time we sold off, it's been fairly aggressive, right? It's been fairly aggressive. You can see when we go back to something like May, you know, this was a bit more trickier, but we still called this break over here, right? We sold off. It was kind of going up and down, sideways. I remember at this time, I was like, listen, guys, this is going to start selling off. And that's exactly what happened, right? We sold off kind of aggressively, and then we just kind of looked dead, right? We kind of looked dead for the most part. But, it wasn't like the craziest thing in terms of fundamentals. It really, really wasn't. We really started to switch to gear fundamentally kind of when we got to like late June, right? Late June is when we started to flip the switch and we were retesting very fundamentally. I mean, this is some of the most fundamental analysis I've seen just in general, including Forex, including, gold, including just everything, right? Very, very fundamental, consistent bouncing up and down, nothing too crazy, not a sell off or pump not happening too fast. And if it did, right, if it did happen a little bit too fast, it instantly kind of got corrected the next day or 1 or 2 days later, right? Right. Fundamentally, we have been going up and down very, very well. And then we can see, right, the moment we stop being fundamental is when, things start selling off. But this sell off has been beautiful. When we look at this, the daily, right, we can see, boom, just in terms of simple support and retest, boom, easy, super, super clean. And then guess what? Another one, support and resistance, boom, super, super clean, right? It has been really clean. It's been really clean and fundamental. Boom, even something like down here, right? This one doesn't have as much as like, retesting, but it's been just very, very good. And this excites me, right? Because, we talked about this sell off over here, right? Where it was kind of just much quicker. It wasn't as fundamental. Even this sell off, I mean, obviously here it was just kind of drastic. We tried going up and then we slammed lower. And then, there wasn't really much lifeline and slammed lower. And then we were just kind of going up and down sideways, but mainly down, right? And then we sold off, right? It just wasn't clean. Like it just really, really wasn't. And I don't really remember the last time we kind of like here back in July is like the most, you know, fundamental sell off where it just goes super, super slow and then we start going back up, right? It's been a very long time since we've had one of these types of sell offs where we just kind of ping up and down, up and down, up and down. And look, ladies and gentlemen, right? We did finally tap into this daily order block, right? We first talked about the 4 hour order block being a high probability, right? And then we got a reaction, but we also did get a rejection. So it was clear as day that we know most likely will be going lower. And then by the end of the day, when we looked at the actual daily candle, it was like very bad in terms of buy candle, right? It just indicated that we are going lower. So we did finally tap into this daily order block right over here, right? Which we did say is a high possibility because when we go to something like the weekly candles, right? We filled the daily order block and we swept this weekly candle. We swept a very nice relevant weekly July candle. So, we manipulated. We are taking out liquidity so that we can start going up higher. Like this is just a game of manipulation. Um, and also technically, right? Technically, ladies and gentlemen, this candle over here this weekly candle has imbalance. Imbalance is when something slightly moves up too fast. And in terms of the daily, it looks very, very nice. It looks very, very healthy. But in terms of the weekly itself, there is a little bit of a gap. So this is why trading is even just complicated, because there's structure inside of structure inside of structure. And I know sometimes I, over explain stuff, but that's just, I just do it because I love talking about this, and I love explaining things to people. And hopefully you guys understand. Even if you guys understand 50%, then at least that still brings you some type of peace of mind, right? And we can see that we did get this dip. Now, I overall do expect some type of resurgence. Number one, the Bitcoin gap finally has been filled. Okay. We finally got filled, and we said maximum we should go is really down to 110K if it was big. And we can see if we go and look over here, right? We filled the gap, and this is Bitcoin futures. So Bitcoin futures is not going to update until I don't even know if it technically updates on Sunday, but for sure Monday, right? Because this is, like I said, the future, so it's only open 5 days a week. So, but look, Bitcoin did its job. It filled the gap, right? It's on a nice support level right now. So, high probabilities that this is going to be the start of the reversal, and that we are going to start recovering with Bitcoin, which means obviously something like Turbo is also going to start recovering. Now, we still technically don't have confirmation that this is it, right? There's still technically no confirmation, but it is a high probability that we are going to start reversing from this area. Also, ladies and gentlemen, right, something we have to look at is that we are just generally going up higher and higher, and we are kind of just squeezing, right? We are looking to be squeezing right out of here, and we are consistently raising the floor every single time, right? Every single time we are raising the floor. And, I discussed before, we are kind of just accumulating going sideways right now. Boom, like this, and then boom, kind of like this, right? So very, very nice. Very, very nice. I expect an expansion with Turbo sooner than later. I expect for us to generally hold this area and to continue to push higher and higher and to explode to the next relevant zone of roughly 0.00, just say 1 cent, right? 1 cent is going to be practically the next relevant zone. So this is more or less what I expect. And yeah, I'm super confident that Turbo will continue to shine, will continue to dominate. And I do think Turbo will be going up mainly slowly, but very fundamentally, which is key, because that means we don't have to go back to that price action. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Remember, enjoy life, buy some Turbo, not a financial advisor, and goodbye.